The wheel jerked in my hands, the car lurching as tires screeched against asphalt. Easy, Noah. Jake's voice cut through my panic. Steady but sharp, like he could pull me back from the edge of a cliff. My heart pounded so hard I swore he could hear it over the engine's whine. I was 18, barely legal to drive, and sitting in the passenger seat of my life until Jake, my driving instructor, slid into the driver's side of this beat-up Corolla and changed everything. It was late spring in Willow Creek, a sleepy Oregon town where everyone knew your business before you did. I'd signed up for lessons to escape my parents' suffocating house, where every dinner was a lecture on fixing me, their only son, who they'd caught kissing a boy behind the bleachers last year. Focus on the road, not your head, Jake said, his hazel eyes flicking toward me. He was maybe 30, with a jawline that could cut glass and a calmness that made my nervous sweating feel ridiculous. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles white, trying not to notice how his hand rested on the gear shift, inches from mine. You're doing fine, he added, softer now, like he knew I was unraveling. I wasn't. Not yet. But the way he said it, like he saw me while I saw him, made my chest ache in a way I didn't understand. Willow Creek wasn't kind to people like me. The town's idea of diversity was choosing between Methodist and Baptist. My parents, devout to a fault, had sent me to conversion therapy camp last summer, where I learned to fake a smile and hide who I was. It didn't work. I still dreamed of boys, of freedom, of a life where I didn't have to whisper my truth. Driving lessons were my excuse to get out, to breathe, to be somewhere my mom's Bible verses couldn't reach me. Jake was different. He didn't talk much about himself, but the rumors did. Divorced, new in town, a drifter who'd settled here to teach kids like me how to parallel park. Some said he'd left Portland after a scandal, but no one knew details. He had this way of looking at you, though, like he could see through your walls. It scared me. It thrilled me. Turn left up here, he said, pointing to a quiet road lined with cherry blossoms. I obeyed, too aware of his presence beside me. The car smelled like his cologne, something woodsy, grounding. I fumbled the turn, the wheels slipping, and the car swerved toward the curb. My breath caught as Jake's hand shot out, grabbing the wheel over mine to steady it. His fingers were warm, calloused, and for a split second, they lingered. Sorry, I mumbled, my face burning. I yanked my hands back, expecting a lecture. Instead, Jake just chuckled, low and easy. You're not the first to almost kill us, kid. But his eyes held mine a beat too long, and something in them made my stomach flip. We kept driving, the lesson stretching into the golden hour. He talked me through merging, signaling, checking mirrors, basics I barely heard because I was too busy stealing glances at him. His leather jacket was worn at the elbows, his dark hair slightly messy, like he'd run his hands through it. I wondered what those hands felt like, not just on a steering wheel. Pull over, he said suddenly, nodding to a gravel lot by the park. I did, shaky but precise. The engine cut off, and silence flooded the car. I waited for him to say something about my terrible driving, but he didn't. Instead, he turned to me, his expression unreadable. Noah, he said, his voice quieter now. Why do you look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders? I froze. No one had ever asked me that. Not my parents. Not my friends. Not the pastor who'd told me I was broken. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Jake leaned back, giving me space, but his eyes didn't waver. You don't have to tell me. he said. But I'm here. If you want. I wanted. God. I wanted. But the words stuck in my throat, heavy with years of shame. I stared at my hands, still gripping the wheel like it could anchor me. It's nothing. I lied, my voice barely a whisper. Jake didn't push. He just nodded, like he understood more than I'd said. All right. Let's call it a day. He reached for his clipboard, scribbling something, then paused. You're braver than you think, Noah. I didn't believe him. But as I drove home that evening, his words echoed in my head, louder than my parents' voices, louder than the town's judgment. For the first time in years, I felt seen, and it terrified me. The next lesson, I showed up early, my palms sweaty as I waited by the Corolla. Jake arrived with a coffee in hand, his smile disarming. Ready to not crash today? He teased, tossing me the keys. I caught them, my fingers brushing his, and my heart did that stupid flip again. We drove out of Willow Creek, toward the winding roads near the river. The car was a bubble, a safe space where the world couldn't touch me. Jake was patient, guiding me through curves and lane changes, his voice a steady anchor. But every time his hand grazed mine to correct the wheel, I felt a jolt, like static electricity sparking something dangerous. You're getting better, he said, as I navigated a tricky turn without stalling. Told you had it in you. His praise hit me harder than it should have. I wanted to believe him, but doubt clung to me like damp clothes. I wasn't good at anything not driving, not being the son my parents wanted, not being brave. Halfway through the lesson, Jake pointed to a dirt road leading to a clearing. Let's try something off book, he said, a glint in his eye. I hesitated but followed his lead, parking in a meadow where wildflowers swayed in the breeze. He got out, motioning for me to follow. My stomach nodded as I stepped onto the grass, the car's engine still ticking behind us. Ever just sat somewhere quiet? He asked, leaning against a tree. I shook my head, feeling exposed without the wheel to hide behind. He patted the ground beside him, and I sat, our shoulders close but not touching. The river murmured nearby, and for a moment, I forgot Willow Creek, my parents, everything. You don't talk much about yourself, I said, surprising myself. Jake raised an eyebrow, then laughed softly. Not much to tell. Grew up in Portland. Got married too young. Got divorced when it didn't work. Moved here for a fresh start. His voice was casual, but there was a weight behind it, like he was leaving out the important parts. Why here? I asked, my curiosity burning. Willow Creek wasn't exactly a destination. He shrugged, picking a blade of grass. Needed somewhere quiet. Somewhere I could figure myself out. He looked at me then, his gaze piercing. What about you, Noah? What's your story? I swallowed hard. The truth clawed at me, but fear kept it locked away. Just trying to get my license, I mumbled, looking away. Jake didn't press, but his silence felt like an invitation, one I wasn't ready to accept. We sat there until the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I wanted to stay forever, in that meadow, with him. But the lesson ended, and reality crept back in. As we drove back, Jake's hand rested on the gear shift again, and I couldn't stop staring at it, wondering what it would feel like to hold it. That night, I lay awake, replaying every moment. His smile, his voice, the way he made me feel like I wasn't broken. But I was still me, Noah. The kid who'd been told his feelings were a sin. I didn't know how to want something I'd been taught to hate. Weeks passed, and lessons with Jake became my lifeline. Each one chipped away at my walls. But fear still held me back. I was falling for him, and it scared me more than any sermon ever had. One rainy afternoon, the car felt too small, the air thick with tension. Jake was quieter than usual, his jaw tight as he watched me drive through Willow Creek's empty streets. I missed a stop sign, and he grabbed the wheel again, his hand covering mine. This time, he didn't let go right away. His fingers tightened, just for a moment, and my breath hitched. "Sorry," he said, pulling back, his voice rough. "Didn't mean to," he stopped, like he'd caught himself saying too much. I wanted to ask what he meant, but my tongue felt heavy. Useless. We pulled into the driving school lot, rain drumming on the roof. Neither of us moved. "Noah," he said finally, his voice low. "You ever feel like you're hiding something so big it's eating you alive?" My heart stopped. I nodded, unable to speak. He looked at me, his eyes searching, and for a second, I thought he might say something that would change everything. Instead, he sighed and opened his door. "See you next lesson." I went home, my mind spinning. Was he hiding something too? The thought gnawed at me, mixing with my own secrets. That night, my dad cornered me in the kitchen, his face hard. "You're spending too much time with that instructor," he said. "People are talking." My stomach dropped. "It's just driving lessons." I lied, but my voice shook. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes, the same look he'd given me after the bleachers incident. I escaped to my room, my chest tight, and cried into my pillow, hating how much I wanted Jake, hating how much I wanted to be free. The next lesson, Jake seemed distant, his usual warmth dimmed. I drove in silence, the weight of my dad's words pressing down on me. When we stopped at a red light, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Do you ever feel wrong?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Like who you are is a mistake?" Jake's hands tightened on the clipboard. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I used to. Took me years to stop believing it." He looked at me, his eyes soft but intense. "You're not a mistake, Noah. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." His words hit like a punch, cracking something open inside me. I wanted to tell him everything about the camp, my parents, the boy I'd kissed, but fear choked me. Instead, I just nodded, tears stinging my eyes. As we drove back, Jake's hand brushed mine again, deliberate this time. It was brief, but it felt like a promise. I didn't know what it meant, but I held on to it like a lifeline. The air between us changed after that. Every lesson felt charged, like we were dancing around something neither of us could name. Jake's touches brief. Careful became more frequent. A hand on my shoulder, a graze of fingers when he corrected my grip. Each one sent my heart racing, a mix of want and terror. One evening, he took me to a back road outside town, where the stars were brighter than Willow Creek's streetlights. "Time to practice night driving," he said, but his voice had an edge, like he was nervous too. We parked in a field, the car's headlights cutting through the dark. He turned them off, and the world shrank to just us, the hum of crickets, and the pounding of my pulse. "Noah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to tell you something." My stomach twisted. I braced myself, expecting him to say we couldn't keep doing this, whatever this was. Instead, he took a deep breath. I'm gay. The words hung in the air, heavy and electric. I stared at him, my mouth dry. Me too, I whispered. The first time I'd ever said it out loud. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. Exhilarating and terrifying. Jake's eyes softened, but there was pain there too. I figured. He said, I see it in you the way you carry it like a secret you're scared to let out. He paused, his voice dropping. I've been there. It's why I left Portland. My ex, he didn't want to be out. It broke us. I didn't know what to say. My heart ached for him. For me. For the lives we were both trying to live. I don't know how to do this, I admitted, my voice cracking. My parents, they'd kill me. Jake reached out, his hand covering mine on the gear shift. This time, he didn't pull away. You don't have to have it all figured out, he said. But you don't have to do it alone. His touch burned, grounding me and setting me on fire all at once. I wanted to lean into it, to let go of the fear, but the weight of Willow Creek pressed down on me. We sat there, hands entwined, until the silence became too much. He let go, starting the car. Let's get you home. That night, I dreamed of him, of us, in a world where I wasn't afraid. But when I woke, reality crashed in. My mom was waiting downstairs, her face pale. We need to talk about Jake, she said, and my blood ran cold. My mom's voice was calm, but her eyes were steel. People saw you with him, Noah, at that field. They're saying things. My heart sank. Willow Creek's gossip mill never slept, and now it had us in its jaws. I tried to play it off. It was just a lesson, I said, but my voice betrayed me. Trembling. She didn't buy it. You're not to see him again, she said. We've signed you up with another instructor. Panic clawed at me. Jake was more than my instructor, he was my safe harbor. The only person who made me feel like I could be myself. I nodded, numb, and fled to my room. I texted Jake, my fingers shaking. They know. I can't see you anymore. His reply came fast. Meet me tonight. The meadow. Please. I shouldn't have gone, but I couldn't stay away. Under the cover of darkness, I snuck out, biking to the meadow where we'd sat before. Jake was there, leaning against the Corolla, his face tense. I'm sorry, I blurted. They're watching us. I didn't mean to. It's not your fault. He cut in, stepping closer. This town, it suffocates people like us. His voice was raw, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. I should have been more careful. I shook my head. I don't want to stop. The word slipped out, reckless and true. Jake's gaze locked onto mine, and for a moment, the world fell away. He reached for my hand, pulling me close, and before I could think, his lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, then desperate, like we were stealing time from a world that didn't want us to have it. I clung to him, my fears drowning in the warmth of his touch. When we pulled apart, breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. We'll figure this out, he whispered. But the next day, reality hit hard. My dad confronted me, his face red with anger. You're throwing your life away, he shouted, slamming a pamphlet for another conversion camp on the table. I ran, biking to the driving school. But Jake wasn't there. A new instructor, a stern woman, handed me a schedule. Jake's gone, she said flatly. Moved on. My world shattered. He was gone, and I hadn't even said goodbye. Days blurred into weeks. I went through the motion school. New driving lessons. My parents' watchful eyes, but Jake's absence was a hole I couldn't fill. I kept his last text on my phone, rereading it until the words blurred. I'm sorry. I'll find you again. I didn't believe him. Willow Creek had won, like it always did. My parents doubled down, enrolling me in counseling sessions with a pastor who spoke in soft tones about healing my desires. I nodded, lied, and hid my heart deeper. But Jake hadn't vanished completely. One night, a letter arrived, slipped under my window. No return address. Just his handwriting. Meet me in Portland. I'm not giving up on you. My pulse raced. Portland was 3 hours away, a world beyond Willow Creek's reach. I knew what it meant leaving everything behind, maybe for good. I spent days agonizing. My parents' voices, the town's judgment, the fear of being caught. They warred with the memory of Jake's kiss, his hand in mine. I was 18, barely free, but the idea of running to him felt like the only choice that was mine. I packed a bag, left a note saying I was staying at a friend's, and took a bus to Portland. The city was overwhelming, bright lights, crowded streets, people who didn't care who I loved. I found the address Jake had given me, a small apartment above a coffee shop. When he opened the door, his face lit up, and I fell into his arms, tears streaming. You came, he whispered, holding me tight. I wasn't sure you would. I had to, I said, my voice breaking. I can't stay there. Not without you. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine. This won't be easy. Noah. Your family. This town will come for you. But I'm here. We'll face it together. For the first time, I believed I could be brave. We spent the night talking, planning, dreaming of a life where we didn't have to hide. But deep down, I knew Willow Creek wasn't done with me yet. Portland was freedom, but it came with a cost. Jake's apartment became my sanctuary, but every phone call from home was a reminder of what I'd left. My parents left voicemails, pleading, then threatening. Come home, Noah, my mom said, her voice cracking. We can fix this. Jake was my rock. He worked odd jobs pretending, driving for a rideshare while I got a part-time gig at the coffee shop downstairs. We were careful, keeping our relationship quiet. But every touch, every stolen kiss, felt like defiance. I was learning to love myself through loving him. One night, Jake took me to a queer bar in the city, a place pulsing with life. People danced, laughed, held hands without fear. I watched, wide-eyed, as Jake pulled me onto the dance floor. This is who you are, he said, his voice fierce. Don't let anyone take it away. But Willow Creek found us. A week later, my dad showed up at the coffee shop, his face a mask of rage. You're coming home, he said, grabbing my arm. I yanked free, my heart pounding. I'm not your project, I said, the words spilling out. I love him, and I'm not ashamed. He froze, his eyes wide with shock. For a moment, I thought he'd hit me. Instead, he turned and left, the door slamming behind him. Jake found me shaking in the back room, pulling me into his arms. You did it, he said, pride in his voice. You stood up. But the victory was bittersweet. My parents cut me off, no calls, no money, no contact. I was free, but I'd lost my family. Jake held me through the nights I cried, promising we'd build a new one. And slowly, We did friends from the bar. Co-workers who became family. A community that saw me for me. A year later, I stood in front of a crowd at Portland's Pride Parade. Jake's hand in mine. I was 19 now, still learning to drive my own life, but no longer afraid. The streets were alive with color, music, and people who'd fought for the right to love. I'd found my place among them. Jake and I had moved into a small house, our own corner of the world. It wasn't perfect, money was tight. And some days, the weight of my family's rejection still stung. But every morning, I woke up next to him, and that was enough. One evening, as we sat on our porch, Jake handed me a small box. Inside was a keychain, a tiny steering wheel engraved with our initials. "You're in the driver's seat now," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'm proud to be along for the ride." I kissed him, tears in my eyes, knowing this was the life I'd fought for. Willow Creek had tried to break me, but love had been stronger. Jake's hand in mine, that first touch in the car, had set me on a path to freedom. And I'd never looked back. The road ahead wasn't easy, but it was ours. And that was worth every sharp turn.